right now. And you are live.
Okay. Welcome to everybody who's here or listening in on the live broadcast. This is a December regular monthly meeting of the Jefferson County Health Department Board of Trustees. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Could we have a roll call
Mr. Deal,
here?
Dr. Henry,
Here.
Mr. Prater,
Here.
Mr. Pig,
Here.
Ms. Davis.
Here.
Okay, all the members are here, so we have a quorum.
Is this on YouTube or anything for the public? Is it being recorded?
Where did you?
Okay. Usually we see something up there.
Oh,
It
that's
threw me
if
off.
somebody is, oh, I'm sorry, if somebody was joining, hopefully if we had any presentations, so
Mm.
my knowledge, we didn't have any,
Gotcha.
so I didn't put it up there. But we're live. Sorry.
Okay, Dr. Henry, would you please read the Health Department mission and vision?
JCHD will champion positive health outcomes and behaviors through innovative programs and community engagement. The vision is advancing the health and safety of Jefferson County.
Okay, thank you. So the next item is approval of the agenda. Have a motion, please.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Now, second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Discussion on that. Okay, we have folks here for an investment report. Do we want to move that up or is it okay where it is?
Move it up. That's a good idea. Maybe, or is that what these gentlemen are here for?
Mhm.
Can they can be on their way.
Do that.
I like that.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Okay,
Try to
that order. That's
get it
fine with
pulled
us and me.
Okay,
Do you need
so,
a, do you need a motion? And- Make that
well,
change?
that's one item. Another potential adjustment. I had a request to adjust the visit schedule that I sent out for board members recently. So does anyone want to make a motion to include that in the agenda?
So moved.
I make a motion to include the revised schedule for us to visit the health department.
That would be a second. We already have a motion.
Yeah, we had a motion.
Oh, yeah, we
You want a
did.
second?
Second.
Okay. All right,
I have discussion
so,
on that, sir. May I
um,
ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Before we vote on
yes,
Can we see what?
it? So my question would be is can we actually present that today since it was not on the agenda?
Can we talk about it? Just talk.
I'm
about it.
asking you a question, Susan.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's not on the agenda, so I'm asking that question. If it's not on the agenda, should it be actually something we can bring up? I guess we can't vote on it. I mean,
You can't take action on it. It's not published ahead of time.
okay,
can't take action on it. Okay.
Implementing the schedule in the first place wasn't a board
Is
vote,
it,
though. It was at the
Well,
chair's discretion.
so
He
It
put
is.
he put the business.
Yeah, we never
schedule
took an initial measure, right, or whatever that was approved.
No, so it doesn't need to be decided on by the board at all.
so then they need to be voted on.
I mean, the board can have a discussion on it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, well, so we're just gonna have a discussion on that. Okay, who would like to discuss the meeting schedule?
Yeah, can we see what it is or? Okay. Do you need to see it?
I'm good, whatever Dennis wants to put out, I'll be more than happy to comply with whatever where that needs to be.
I reviewed it when you sent it out, Dennis, I didn't have any concerns.
I didn't have any concerns either.
Can someone switch with me for April because that starts to be a busy month for me?
Happy to.
Would anybody be
I don't
willing
care.
to switch their month with me?
On May, so I can just switch you April to May.
April and May is both busy. I could go earlier, it'd be great, better for me.
Like when?
Either one of the other two. March or. January, February, March.
Okay,
Just make the
That'd be
adjustment.
10,
Just
yeah.
just make the adjustment and let me know. Send it back out.
all right. I'll do that and send out a revised schedule.
So
Okay,
therefore, we don't need to add it to the agenda.
great. So the only amendment that was motioned and seconded was changing the investment report to the first item to be discussed. So any other discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor of that amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that amendment to the agenda passes, which means that it's time for our investment report.
All right. Yes.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, man. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. It's been probably about 2 years since we presented. Not that you guys had any, you weren't busy or anything, any pandemics or anything going on. First thing I wanted to do is kind of just remind everybody what we have adopted from an investment policy statement, things like that. Just to kind of give a plan of what we're actually doing in the portfolio and things like that. So first thing is when we first started these investment funds, we adopted the actual Missouri State Treasurer's recommended investment policy for public funds. And so what that is, in short, is you can basically have money market funds that are backed by US Treasury bonds, and then you can actually buy individual US Treasury and agency bonds fully backed by the US government up into a duration of 5-year maturities. And that is what we have done for forever. Since I think it was like 2018 or 2019 is when we started that. The one thing that I'll mention when we started that is we were in a very low rate environment. I think that the interest rate environment was maybe we were being able to buy treasuries at like 2.5%, 2 to 2.5%, and that's even out for 5 years. Well, as we sit here today, that is changing, and it changes very rapidly this year. And so the good news on that is when we go out and buy bonds now out 5 years for US Treasury bonds, we're starting to get better rates. So in future, your income will start going up in this portfolio. And so if everybody has their presentations here, I just wanted to go through and talk about, what's happening in the portfolios, what's going on. We've been in a very tough interest rate environment for bonds that we're holding right now. I would say this is actually on a fixed income standpoint, this is one of the best portfolios I've seen from a performance standpoint with the Fed rising interest rates 4.5% in a year. But I think the first thing I want to do, if you go to page 5, is talk about the performance. And right now, year to date, we're down 3.69% at the end of November. Now, what does that mean? Have we realized the loss of 3.69%? No, we have not. It's just that's a mechanism of the bonds that we hold in our portfolio are down 3.69% if we sold them right now. But the good thing about the bonds that we have, they're AAA rated, they're US government bonds. We have laddered them out from 1 to 5 years, and with roughly $1 million coming maturing every year out And we expect to get fully funded with around 3 or 4% yield or return with those bonds when they mature. So it's not like we're hoping and wishing that we're gonna get a return with these type of investments. We are expecting holding them right now when they mature, that we're getting those yields. And so, one thing I wanted to kind of point out, if we go to page, and I apologize for flipping around, but I just wanted to kind of go, if we go to page 12, where there's a bond analysis of the bonds that we're holding. Each bond is basically has a yield to maturity. So if you hold those bonds, you are in essence getting that return of every one of those bonds. And that average return is about 4.28%. So this portfolio is going to kick out a return if we hold these bonds to maturity of about around 4.28%. It's just we're down from a performance standpoint because right now the bonds are discounted based off of the Fed funds and what it's done this year. So they're discounted if you wanted to sell them at the market today. This the most liquid asset out there. And so they're very liquid if you needed your liquidity. And that's one of the questions that I had, is are there liquidity needs as we build these funds? Because obviously we have $1 million coming due every year. So I can stop the ladder and keep it in cash as things come due, if that's what you guys need from me. And it can be discussed, and then, you can have, Kelly or Jennifer let me know like what we need to do, but that's one of the options that we can have, is we can stop the ladder, let things roll off, the bonds roll off, and then we can have cash available if you guys have liquidity needs for 2023. Yes.
So what's the timing on that? Can we do that anytime or at the maturity date?
So we can sell anytime. Like this is like treasuries are the most liquid investment out there. So we could sell it anytime. It's just a matter of function of, do you want to take on realized loss on that maturity or not? So that's why it's kind of the ladder's built to where it's you got roughly almost $6 million. So it's $1,250,000 is coming due almost every year.
Can you send us a schedule of the maturity dates for 2023?
Yeah, so on page.
So by bond on page 12 and going forward,
Yeah.
each one has the maturity listed out in dollar.
Yeah.
I was looking for dates when you could clear it out.
Yeah, so over on the left-hand side, if you look, on the
Yeah.
very top of the screen.
Which page are you guys referring to?
Page 12.
And to the far left, each one, if you go down to that maturity.
Okay.
Any questions about the bond, the strategy? And it's pretty self-explanatory that, we take the treasury, the Missouri State Treasurer's recommended investment policy. I will say, we do like to track a benchmark. So if you kind of go back to page 5, you put the 1 to 5 year treasury agency benchmark there. That's basically a benchmark that tracks what our portfolio is doing, and you can kind of see we're outperforming year to date. What that is when we implement a manager to do this ladder, that manager is getting better execution on buying treasuries, because treasuries is a spread type of market. So when you go to buy it, we pick managers that are buying in larger bulks to get a cheaper price to buy that spread. So that's pretty much what that is. And so that our managers even outperforming, it's tough to outperform just buying treasuries, but we are keeping track of that manager as well to make sure they're getting what I call as execution when they go out to buy bonds. So any other questions, any concerns? Obviously the Fed hasn't been very helpful in the fixed income environment or the equity environment, and for that matter. But I will say, if our economic outlook for 23 and 24 We do think, the end of 23, we could see the Fed actually, lowering the Fed funds rate, which makes your bonds go up. And so we think, maybe they'll have one, possibly two more rate hikes early on in 2023, but then flatten out. Hopefully that they got their wish of inflation ratcheting down, going forward. And so, that's kind of what we're looking at. That's what the market's priced in with the Fed futures rates. When you look at the futures market and what, the institutional money's betting on. And so that's what we expect. We should have a pretty flat, Fed's funds movement. If not, maybe a little lower. If we go into a recession, obviously the mechanism of a recession, the Fed has two dual mandates, right? Keeping unemployment, low and keeping inflation, low. So they have basically one arrow of their quiver is lowering the Fed's fund rate, lower the cost of borrowing, and that can spur the economy. So that is something, if you go into a recession, no one likes to see that, but quite frankly, Fed's lowering interest rates is good for this portfolio. So that's really all I had. Let us know if there is a plan of spending and things like that to kind of tell the managers what we need and what you guys need from a cash flow standpoint. Be happy to let them know.
So, Mr. Deal, how are we going to fund our new building? We're going to be with this?
Wants to speak to that.
That'll be decided on and presented to the board at the appropriate time.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, with me.
It'll be decided on and presented to the board.
Mhm.
We haven't decided on the method of funding yet.
All right, I will leave, so I just wanted, for like compliance purposes, just to update, an investment policy statement just with our compliance, so took it straight off the Treasury website. I'll just have, Kelly, you can bring it, you can review it, and then just scan it, give me a sign it and scan it, and that's all we really need from there, but, it's the same. I just updated it, and, so the same investment policy going forward.
So, let's see if I understand you correctly. So, when they're performing like they need to be, you can have that cash available if we want to do something else with it.
They're gonna perform no matter what. It's not when they need to be. They're gonna perform, they're gonna give you the interest that, or the yield from, that we bought when we bought them.
Right.
And when they mature, you get that cash and we can hold it. Or we can reinvest it back in the ladder. That's really the thing.
What I'm thinking is, if we're planning on maybe getting a loan for, I don't know how many percent interest, we're only performing at 3 or 4% with those. Take that and put that down on our building instead of keeping it in investments. That is our investment.
Yeah, I mean, it's really up
Smart
to,
thing to do with our money is to save ourselves the interest rate in between.
yeah,
So,
or
we should
slice the dice either way of that, just to have liquidity depending on that cost. We can go and do those analysis as well, so the offer there, when you work for an enterprise, we don't just manage money, we can help do those analysis, obviously, I know. We can get our bank side of the house to also help with, what loan rates are, things like that. But our investment team can also help you guys do any type of cash flow funding and things like that and figure out what that cost is. So we can definitely get some analysis to you for that too. That's all part of, working with enterprise and loan.
Just to be clear, if we sell a bond before the maturity date, we lose some or all of the
Depends on where the market is.
interest.
No, you get whatever your accrued interest is part of the sale. It's whatever the realized gain loss is at that bond. So if you wanted cash, I would, in essence, depending on the timing, I'd be looking at
the portfolio, seeing what's the most marketable, where we are. If there's a gain, I probably sell a gain bond first. That way we let the other bonds kind of catch up. But most likely with a ladder, you would sell the shortest term bond because that doesn't have much loss. Given the market environment, but if we, right now, the interest rates actually, when the Fed raised rates last week, interest rates went down. You know, everybody say, hey, the Fed's raising rates, but really the yield curve actually came down a little bit. And so that's good for your bonds because that's actually what is pricing your bonds and discounting your bonds is the yield curve, not that fund rate.
And the reason that there would be a theoretical loss there is because you're selling it to whoever will buy it. And they aren't gonna buy it for full price because they could get a better rate if they went to the market and bought a new bond. So you're gonna discount what you have potentially, or up if your rate, your yield maturity is higher than what they can get today. That's why there's that disparity there.
Thank you. Anything else?
Typically, when we do go to get a loan, we're looking at what kind of interest rate, just for example.
For real estate. Don't quote me on this, because I'm in investments, so I'm not loans, but I'd say. Between 5% and 7% right now.
Makes total sense to take what we've got that's not performing at that rate and use that instead.
Yeah, but selling bonds is another option, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's whether or not you want to borrow or sell fund.
Yeah. Like James is right, there's a number of options that we can look at and need to discuss.
Or blended.
Right,
We have still a lot of organizations that do a blended, had a couple unions that built buildings and they paid some, but then some of them paid with cash flow that's coming in, grants that are coming in, things like that, and still have. One thing that I always like is, I always like liquidity for other things that to help, so you don't want to wrap it up all in real estate, things like that, because to get money out of real estate, you have to borrow. And things like that, so liquidity is also part of that analysis.
all right, great, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you guys, Merry Christmas.
Thanks.
Yeah. we can-
Thank you.
I do have a question related to this, not for them, but for the group. Just to give a little background to those listening and to Susie, we had a large amount of money sitting in the bank that wasn't really being protected because it was such a large amount and it also wasn't gaining interest. So that's why we went with investing this into enterprise so that we could protect it. Because it was a large amount of money and for future building, that was, the concept of it and the thought behind it. So we invested this back in the 2018, 2019, I don't remember the date, but we haven't put any more in there. This is just the original amount that we put in, correct?
Correct.
So have we built up more funds that we need to be looking at putting into this investment?
Not current.
Okay,
And this was all under the guidelines of the state of how governmental institutions can put money into bonds and so forth. We followed all their guidelines and rules.
Common practice, we still
Right.
can do whatever we want.
So,
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so moving on. Need to approve some expenditures. The first item is approval of the November 2022 expenditures.
make a motion, we approve the, I'm sorry, sir, I apologize.
it's so exciting.
Sorry, Tim.
I apologize.
Just mention the amount on those, $250,409.35.
I make a motion.
We have a motion and second
Oh, you're right.
to approve those expenditures. Is there any discussion on
Yes,
those?
Mr. Deal, I have not really a question, but more just a point. If Steve can help me out, I know there's quite a few expenditures on here from Arch Images and they are heavy dollars. Arch Images is our architect for the building. He's actually going through the process of putting the drawing up the plans for the building and spearheading a lot of other endeavors. If you want to maybe just kind of speak to that, and I don't know, like I said, there's just a quick add, and there's almost $50,000 worth of dollars on there is just quick add, and so if there's something.
Yeah, I don't have a total for Arch Images year to date. I wasn't prepared for that, but yeah, we have a meeting twice a month. We meet with them, with Arch Images, and each time they have typically a new set of prints that we look at. So I know there's a cost and they have in those prints. They also, part of the cost is they talk with builders. And actually had one of our designs had a builder look and review it and give us a cost estimate for that first design. So there was a cost with that. It's just part of his ongoing fees of the design phase.
I know that there were, and I don't mean to, just to add on, in looking over the expenses, one was for an outstanding May invoice and one for a June invoice. There was a payment that was made in July that was lost in the mail. So it's not.
Okay, so not all these are, okay, so.
They're not all.
Well, I mean, I get it because sometimes it starts backloading at the end.
Correct.
You will start getting more of those at the end.
Also, it's part of the non-operating budget that was a part.
Okay. Thank you. I knew there's, I just, like I said, it was pretty heavy there. Thank you. I'm finished.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Also, noticing again, on the 3rd of November, Architect Now, the Aspen software database development, another 26,000 basically going towards that. I also want to point out on 11.3 CMIT Solutions IT support service contract. And Kelly, is that part of the Aspen as well, or is that something else? 25,000?
That's actually what we were just talking about, the CMIT charges for 11.3. So that was the one I was just describing, had an outstanding May invoice and the July payment had been lost in the mail. And so a check had to be reissued. So it's looking higher than it would normally have been for this.
Gotcha. And then,
But once again, the Aspen software is grant. Correct? That is grant money.
And it's all already included payments.
Correct.
yeah, and then there's a page back here somewhere that's kind of breaking down what grants we're getting, which is helpful. Okay, and then on for the entire month of November, I've been closely watching our legal fees, and we're still quite a bit higher than what we should be, in my opinion. We you know, Christie's billed us for the month of November, $2,900 for board governance, 10 hours. And a 3-hour sunshine request, also for general counseling, $820, real estate, $56, the Shannon Auto case, $952, Jen Robinson, $280, added together with an invoice for $1128. We paid them another $1,820 for labor and employment hours.
But just to clarify, ma'am,
And-
the payment that you're describing are check dates. So the check date for previous invoices, the invoice for November was received on 11/30 and the amount of $1,666.
Yeah, I think I'm basically going by when we're paying out and what we're paying out in that month. And so I just want to clarify that, looks like we paid another, hang on here. I had it added together, $6,837 just in the month of November to Christy Coleman for legal services. Just It's a bit high. I'd just like to see that come down.
I'm gonna say this again to just clarify, one, it's not going directly from this opponent, it's going through the law firm, because there are other individuals and attorneys that are assisting with different projects. So the Akron project that has, lawyers reviewing to ensure that our agreements and contracts are in place, are separate lawyers, than Christine from this. We work with the individuals who specialize in those areas. So again, these are customary, as well as the parts for our counseling as far as Aspen is also covered under the grants.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree. I think they're extremely high and we need to get them down. What else they can do to do better
Ms.
for
Davis,
us there.
you know, that's your opinion, and that's fine. But I think, it seems to me you're trying to mislead people into thinking that we're having a problem with these legal fees, and
Well, I don't know any other board that spends this kind of money on their attorneys, so it's just.
what other boards are you familiar with
Well,
and their legal
the county
expenses?
council, the.
You're
ambulance
familiar with the
boards,
county council's legal expenses?
911 board,
Don't they have a
most
staff
guys have
attorney?
attorneys and they're not spending that.
They have a staff attorney.
I'd just like people to understand, it's fine to question these, we answer every time you bring something up. If
That's
your
what I'm
intent,
doing,
if
it's
your
just whatever.
intent is to mislead people that these are not appropriate, I totally disagree. That's your opinion, but it's wrong.
You can't say I'm wrong because that's not your,
I'm saying you're
that's
wrong.
not your prerogative. You don't. You can't say I'm wrong because
Do
you
you have
don't
any
know
other
what.
discussion?
I'm
on
stating how
these?
much we spent, so that's not wrong.
That's fine,
That's correct.
that you're,
So,
the
there you go.
numbers are correct, your
I'm not
reasoning is
wrong.
not. Any other discussion on the expenditures? We have a motion and second to approve those. No other discussion, everyone in favor, please say aye. Aye, anyone opposed? It passes 5-0. Next item is approval of the November 2022 electronic payments.
Sorry, Mr. Point of order. On that vote, I voted, I vote no. So you had a 4 and a 1. For the record,
I wish you would vote
I'm
when
not
I
in
ask
favor
people
of
to
the-
vote.
charges that were being charged on that.
Please vote when you're asked to
Sure.
vote. Approval of the 2022 electronic payments. Actual amount of those is $492,126.46.
So many.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion second to approve those. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the amount specified, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'll say aye on that as well, so 5.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And the last approval item is pre-approval of the January 2023 electronic payments. Estimated amount for those is $605,237.25.
I make the motion.
So,
Okay, so the motion second to approve those. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the estimated electronic payments, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, those are approved. So had the director's report, which originally included the investment report. We've done that. Do you have anything else, Director? That's all we had. Okay, thank you. No old business on the agenda. 2 new business items are first, approval of the 2023 Health Department budget.
I make a motion, we approve the 2023 Jefferson County Health Department budget.
I second.
Okay, the motion and second to approve that. Everyone got a copy of it in their email. We had a initial discussion on this at the last board meeting. So any other discussion on the budget?
Yeah, it's down here on page 2.
I'm sorry.
It's down there. That insurance, not private.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all we had. You do.
It's only when I found some.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
the election expense, 100,000.
Mhm.
Would that be us putting the health department on the ballot for April?
Yes,
Okay. That runs us around 120,000, correct? Ish.
it depends on how many entities
Right.
and what entities are involved in the election.
Okay.
So it can vary.
Gotcha.
Any other discussion?
Was there a question about the election expense?
No, I think just, if anyone's checking in, watching these videos, they might wonder, what that was, and so I just made a clarification that that's to put us on the ballot as a health department for election.
Right. If folks don't know that, the county does charge entities involved in elections for their share of the election expense. So we do pay for those. Hearing nothing else, all in favor of approving the 2023 budget as presented, please say aye.
I,
Okay, so the budget's adopted.
I do want to say that I appreciate the detail. It was really good. Thank you.
And the next item is 2023 employee salary increases.
The salary increases for the salaried and hourly staff that did not include the director. For 2023 is proposed at 157,589.
How many employees do we have? Just curious, off the top of your head, do you know?
About 85,
85?
part-time and our, PRN staff.
So how many full timers?
Around 70.
70?
What's the percentage?
We put in, we have done our traditional raise, so we 4% increase for salaried and $1 increase for hourly.
I make a motion so we can do it properly in discussion. I make a motion, we approve the 2023 employee salary increases.
Second.
Okay, so motion and second to approve those, we had some discussion.
With those, that, yeah, it's a max of 4%, max, but not per person. It's gonna be contingent on people's reviews, basically.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that for everybody.
Thank you.
And the increases take effect as of January.
January 1.
Do we have an average of the increase? Do you know yet, or? I guess you don't know. Have they done? Yes, no?
Yeah. Right.
But the max is the
The
amount you
max
said.
is the amount. So it could be the lower up to.
And that amount hit only if everybody who's here stays here, correct? We have openings, people come and go, that can change. Any other discussion?
I don't know if this is on the same subject or not, but the drill down on the budget about where the grant money is coming from, it's kind of interesting. I have a couple of questions.
It's
a
not
couple
on
of
the
those.
subject. We're talking about salary increases right now.
Yeah, after that, maybe you can go back to that for just a minute.
We've already voted to pass the budget.
It's just general questions. I can wait. You can, after the meeting, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so all in favor of the proposed employee salary increases, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. That passes. Okay, do you have any, I hate to start closed session? No.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
All right, motion second to adjourn, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Hope everybody has Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Our
Stay
next,
warm.
next meeting in January. I'm sorry, I don't have the date. I think it's 26.
Some numbers.
It'll come us.
I don't think it's.